Welcome to Voices of the Case. In this episode, we want to tell you the story of the Cannibal of Rotenburg, the crime that defied logic.
It's a name, Armin Meiwes, that just sends a chill, doesn't it? The Cannibal of Rotenburg.
Absolutely. His actions back in the early 2000s, they just seemed almost impossible to grasp. I mean, the core of it. Killing, dismembering, and then actually consuming Jürgen Brandes.
And the fact that you met him online, not some random encounter, but through the internet.
Exactly. It shocked Germany, obviously, but really the whole world. It just hit differently.
It really did. It challenges so many assumptions about crime and human connection, or lack thereof.
So today we're going to try and unpack this, look at the details we have, try to piece together the motivations, the events, understand the why behind something so unthinkable.
Yeah, the online aspect, the supposed agreement between them.
Yeah.
It just casts this really unsettling shadow over everything.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning with Meiwes himself, Armin Meiwes, born December 1st, 1961 in Essen, West Germany.
Right, and his childhood. Well, from what we know, it wasn't exactly happy, even though there was family pets.
He described it as unhappy. His father and brothers left quite early on, didn't they?
Yeah, leaving him mainly with his mother, who's often described as withdrawn and maybe quite controlling.
Which led to loneliness, apparently quite profound loneliness.
So much so that he invented an imaginary brother.
An imaginary friend isn't unheard of, but this seems different. It became a focus for him.
It seems that way. As he got older, into adolescence, his sexual desires started developing, but directed towards this imaginary brother and other boys.
But it wasn't just attraction, was it? There was this other element, this desire for connection.
A really deep desire, yeah, which somehow warped into this incredibly disturbing fantasy.
The fantasy of consuming them.
Exactly, to achieve what he saw as the ultimate union, a literal merging. It's hard to comprehend.
That idea, ultimate union through consumption, psychologically, that's just incredibly dark territory.
It really is. It points to a complete breakdown of boundaries, a fractured view of intimacy, and starting with an imaginary figure just highlights that deep isolation early on.
But then he joined the army, found the structure there.
Yes, for over 10 years, actually. And it seems like that environment, that structure, maybe helped him suppress those desires for a while.
But he left the army eventually to care for his mother.
That's right. And after she passed away, you'd think maybe freedom, but instead, just overwhelming loneliness again, it seems.
And that's when things really started moving towards this, around the year 2000.
He starts going online, actively looking for information about cannibalism, looking for contacts.
The timing with his mother's death feels significant, doesn't it?
It really does seem like a catalyst.
Yeah.
Like that external focus was gone, and these old desires came rushing back, amplified by the anonymity of the early internet.
An avenue to explore things he couldn't before.
Precisely.
And that online search, it led to some truly bizarre encounters even before Brandes.
Oh, yeah. There was one story about a cook who apparently offered himself and 2 assistants.
It's unbelievable, but Meiwes hesitated. Why?
Because the cook apparently had doubts. And for Meiwes, this is key. He felt he needed the other person to be fully, willingly participating. Consensual.
That element of consent, it just makes the whole thing even more complex and disturbing legally and ethically.
Absolutely. It forces you to ask really uncomfortable questions about autonomy, desire. What even is victimhood in a situation like this? It didn't lessen the horror, but it definitely complicated the prosecution.
So then he connects with Jürgen Brandes, an engineer from Berlin, found him in a chat forum.
Right. And Brandes, well, he wasn't just a random person. He apparently had his own history involving sexual rituals, violence, torture.
So there was a shared darkness there already.
It seems so. They met in person first for a weekend, explored these ideas together.
But Brandes actually left after that first meeting.
He did. But then he called Meiwes back, wanted to meet again, wanted to try again.
Yeah. Which suggests it wasn't just Meiwes pushing this. Brandes was actively seeking it too.
It certainly points that way. A kind of fatalistic drive, maybe. A real willingness to engage.
And the second meeting, that's when it escalated dramatically.
Brandes asked Meiwes to amputate his penis.
The reported words were just so blunt. Cortalo de universe. Cut it off already.
Yeah. And apparently fueled by alcohol, sleeping pills.
Yeah.
Brandes claimed he felt no pain.
And Meiwes, he did it. Cut it into pieces, cooked it simply, salt, pepper, garlic.
Yeah, they both ate it.
Unbelievable. Meiwes later said he couldn't understand Brandes' apparent happiness during this.
That specific detail is profoundly disturbing, isn't it? It hints maybe at very different motivations. Brandis's euphoria could be self-destruction, transgression. Who knows? Meiwes' confusion suggests his focus was maybe more on the act itself, fulfilling his fantasy.
But the horror wasn't over. That wasn't the end.
No. Meiwes then killed Brandis at what's been called the dismemberment table.
And he filmed it all, recorded the entire thing.
The killing itself happened sometime between the night of March 9th and the early morning of March 10th, 2001.
Then he dismembered the body, stored the flesh,
and consumed it over the next days and weeks.
recording it. That adds another layer, doesn't it? Not just fulfilling the fantasy, but documenting it.
Yeah, maybe for validation or repeated viewing. It underlines the premeditation, the ritualistic aspect of it all. It's deeply unsettling.
And even after all that, he went back online.
Kept searching for more victims, more willing participants.
Which is ultimately how he got caught, right?
Exactly. A student in Innsbruck, Austria, I think, saw Meiwes' posts in these forums claiming he'd eaten human flesh.
And reported him.
And apparently, investigators found evidence suggesting hundreds of other people had expressed some kind of willingness online to be eaten.
That number, it's just staggering and terrifying.
It really forces you to confront the sheer range of human desires out there, however extreme, and how the internet can, well, connect people with those desires, for good, or in this case, for something horrific.
So the police arrest him in December 2002, about a year, maybe more, after the actual killing.
Yeah, and the legal battle kicks off.
Yeah.
And it's a complex one.
Psychologists examined him, right? They concluded he wasn't legally insane.
Correct. But they did raise questions about Brandis' state of mind, his capacity for rational thought when he supposedly consented.
So the prosecution went for murder, with sexual motives, aiming for life in prison.
Makes sense. But the defense had a different angle.
Homicide at request, like a form of illegal euthanasia.
Exactly. Arguing that Brandis' consent changed the nature of the crime, which, under German law at the time, carried a much, much lighter potential sentence, maybe only 6 months to 5 years.
Huge difference. Some legal experts even thought this could set a precedent, right? A killing agreed upon by both parties.
Professor Arthur Kreuzer mentioned that possibility, yeah. And the defense brought up those other instances.
Where Meiwes let people go, the 4 others who had second thoughts.
Right, presenting it as proof that Brandis' consent was genuine and unwavering.
Meiwes himself, what did he claim in court?
He claimed Brandis wanted to die by stabbing, that he took cold medicine to pass out. He said, Bernd approached me of his own free will to end his life.
And even more chillingly,
for him, it was a pleasant death.
Jess, wow. So the first trial, 2004, what was the outcome?
8 years. He was convicted of manslaughter, essentially.
Which many saw as too lenient.
Definitely. The prosecution appealed immediately.
Did Meiwes show any remorse?
He did make statements, said something like, I had great pleasure, and I don't need to do it again. I'm very sorry, but I cannot undo what I did. Make of that what you will.
So the appeal
led to a retrial. And in 2006, the verdict changed.
Murder with sexual motives.
Yes, and a sentence of life in prison, which is where he remains.
The story doesn't quite end there, though, does it? The aftermath.
No, the case continues to cast a long shadow. Just last year, April 2023, that house.
Where it all happened. In Rotenburg.
His damaged in a fire. Suspected arson.
The mayor actually hoped it would stop the morbid tourism, people visiting the site.
Understandable. The fascination with true crime, especially something this extreme, can be really disruptive for communities.
And the cultural impact has been huge. Movies, music.
Oh, absolutely. There's the film Rotenburg.
Also called The Cannibal of Rotenburg internationally. It was banned in Germany for a while.
Yeah, Meiwes sued, claimed violation of his personality rights. The ban was eventually lifted, though. It even won awards at Sitges, the Fantasy and Horror Film Festival.
Which says something about the morbid fascination, I suppose.
Definitely. And there was another direct-to-video horror film called Cannibal, just directly exploiting it.
And music. I know Rammstein.
Rammstein's song My Tale, My Part. Directly inspired by the case, trying to voice Brandis' perspective even. Very controversial.
Meiwes sued them too.
He did, yes. Lost that case as well.
And other bands.
The Swedish death metal band, Bloodbath, has a song called Eaten, explicitly about Brandis' desires. They apparently talk about the case quite darkly when they play it live.
Wow. Even comedy hasn't entirely avoided it.
Surprisingly, no.
Yeah.
The IT Crowd, the British sitcom, did a parody of the whole scenario in one episode.
Which is quite something. And Hannibal, the TV show.
Yeah, reference the case in dialogue. It just shows how deeply it penetrated the cultural consciousness. across all sorts of genres.
It underscores how profoundly disturbing and memorable this case was. It tapped into something deep and unsettling.
Absolutely. It's a constant reminder of the darker potentials within human nature and raises those really difficult questions about desire, consent, online interaction.
So as we wrap up, it leaves you thinking, doesn't it, this whole case? The consent element, the motivations, the sheer unease it caused. Was it just a one-off, a total anomaly, or does it hint at something else? About, the hidden corners of human desire, especially in the digital age.
That's the lingering question, isn't it? The power of anonymity online, the search for extreme experiences. What does it enable?
It forces you to confront some really uncomfortable ideas about human behavior, that's for sure.
It's indeed. A chilling and complex story that stays with you long after you hear the details.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Case. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.